Welcome back to the Reading Lounge, guardians of the lore and seekers of historical truth. Today, we are descending into the very heart of the Inferno. We are deconstructing A Storm of Swords, the third and most monumental volume in George R.R. Martin's original trilogy. This is the book that didn't just set the bar for the series, it permanently altered the DNA of modern epic fantasy. This is where the training wheels come off, and we realize that Martin is not writing a fairy tale about kings and queens, but a brutal autopsy of a dying civilization. Alex, the sheer density of tectonic shifts in this 1,200-page masterpiece is staggering. We have the total collapse of the Northern Cause, the terrifying awakening of ancient magic, and character transformations that defy every literary trope. When you look back at this storm, where does the first strike of lightning hit for you?
For me, Max, the storm is the crushing realization that idealism is a death sentence in Westeros. A Storm of Swords is the bill coming due for every choice made in the first two books. It's a narrative engine fueled by the systematic erosion of honor. Look at Robb Stark. He is the young wolf, a tactical prodigy who wins every single military engagement. But Martin uses Robb to prove a devastating point. Military genius on the battlefield is worthless if your social and political contracts are fundamentally broken. Before we even get to the blood, we have to talk about the ghost of Highheart. This tiny, ancient figure in the Riverlands gives us a glimpse into the cosmic machinery of the world. She dreams of a king dying in a storm of bells, of a mother dying and returning, and of a giant in a castle made of snow. This adds a layer of existential dread. It suggests that while the lords are bickering over an iron chair, the old gods are already witnessing the tragedy as if it's already happened. The Red Wedding wasn't just a political betrayal. It was a metaphysical earthquake that destroyed the foundation of the world.
Let's analyze that guest right from a deep structural perspective. In Westeros, this isn't just a polite tradition. It is the most foundational law of civilization, predating the faith of the Seven and even the arrival of the Andals. It is an ancient pact logic born from the first men and the children of the forest. The act of sharing salt and bread creates a biological and spiritual bond of protection. By violating this, Walder Frey didn't just commit mass murder, he committed a sin so profound that it theoretically curses the very ground of the twins for generations. Tywin Lannister's justification is the ultimate exercise in bone-chilling pragmatism. He famously asked, "Why is it more honorable to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner?" It's a terrifyingly logical argument for a monster. He traded the Lannister reputation for a decisive, short-term tactical victory, but the cost was the total destruction of the social trust that allows a kingdom to function. You cannot build a lasting peace on a foundation of broken bread and spilled blood. The North remembers isn't just a slogan, it's a psychic trauma that will eventually consume House Frey and House Lannister alike.
While the North is bleeding, the Riverlands introduce us to a force that complicates the binary war of kings, the Brotherhood without banners. This is where the lore gets truly dark and mystical. We see Lord Beric Dondarrion, a man who has been resurrected 6 times by the fire magic of Thoros of Myr. Max, this is a crucial deconstruction of the heroic return. Beric isn't a shining savior. He is a piece of a man, losing a part of his memory and his humanity every time he comes back. He is a literal ghost of a knight. This introduces the concept that in Martin's world, magic always comes with a horrific price. The fire that brings life also consumes the soul. This group represents the people the kings forgot, the small folk caught in the crossfire. It shows that the war has created a vacuum of power, where the dead and the desperate are starting to organize. It's a terrifying look at what happens when the legal systems we discussed fail the common man.
And as the dead rise in the Riverlands, a different kind of transformation is happening at Harrenhal. We have to talk about the deconstruction of Jaime Lannister. This is perhaps the greatest character arc in the history of the genre. At the start of this book, Jaime is the Golden Lion, defined by his lethal skill with a blade and his toxic arrogance. Then, he loses his sword hand. His primary tool of interaction with the world is severed. His identity is destroyed in a single strike.
Through his journey with Brienne of Tarth, we see the man underneath the gilded armor. The bathtub scene is a masterpiece of recontextualizing history. When he finally reveals the truth about the Mad King and the wildfire plot, we realize that the Kingslayer, the most dishonorable man in the eyes of the realm, actually committed the single most heroic act in the history of the city, while the honorable Ned Stark judged him without ever asking why. It forces the reader to realize that in Westeros, reputation is a lie, and true honor is found in the shadows, where no one is watching.
It truly shifts the moral compass of the series. But while Jaime finds his humanity, King's Landing hosts a trial by combat that feels like a collision of two completely different realities. Oberyn Martell versus Gregor Clegane. This isn't just a spectacle, it's a masterclass in asymmetric combat philosophy. The Red Viper is a specialist. He knows he cannot trade physical blows with a monster who can break oak shields with a single hand. So he uses a spear for reach, light armor for mobility, and circular movement to keep the mountain in a constant state of transition. It's pure combat logic, using the enemy's own massive size and momentum against them. Every strike Oberyn makes is surgical, targeting the armpits, the back of the knees, the gaps in the plate armor. He had the victory, Max. He had the mountain on his back, dying from manticore venom. But Oberyn's need for a confession, for a legal and public admission of guilt for the murder of his sister Ilya, overrode his tactical discipline. He stepped into the kill zone for an answer, and he paid with his life. It's a haunting reminder that in this universe, even if you are the superior warrior, the crushing weight of your past can still destroy you in a second of emotional weakness.
That scene is the ultimate tragedy of vengeance. It proves that in the Game of Thrones, your emotions are your greatest vulnerability. But let's move across the narrow sea, because Daenerys Targaryen is undergoing her own brutal evolution in Slaver's Bay. This is where she truly becomes the breaker of chains. The Dracarius moment in Astapor is one of the most iconic scenes in literature. She uses the very commodity the slavers thought they were buying, a dragon, to destroy the system itself. It's a brilliant tactical move, but it also marks the beginning of her struggle with the complexities of ruling. She realizes that freeing a city is easy, but maintaining justice in a world built on cruelty is nearly impossible. Her dragons are no longer just pets, they are weapons of mass destruction that are slowly beginning to outgrow her control. Fire and blood are returning to the east, and it's a mirror to the ice and shadows returning to the north. The world is becoming magical and dangerous again, and the old laws of men are being scorched away.
And speaking of the North, we have the Battle of Castle Block. This is where Jon Snow finally transitions from a boy seeking a home to a commander leading a nation. He's defending a 700-foot ice wall against 100,000 wildlings with a group of orphans, thieves, and old men. The tactics are incredible. The use of gravel barrels, the massive scythe that clears the wall, and the psychological warfare against mammoths and giants. Jon has to manage a defense with zero margin for error, understanding that if the wall falls, the world falls. And then we have the arrival of Stannis Baratheon, the king who cared. Stannis realizes the truth that every other king ignored. To save the kingdom, you must first save the people. His charge into the wildling camp is one of the few moments of pure heroic spectacle in the book, and it completely shifts the lore of the Night's Watch. It's the first time we see the ice side of the story truly meeting the fire side in a massive military engagement, setting the stage for the true war for the dawn.
The final act of A Storm of Swords is a series of brutal deconstructions. We have the death of the Lannister patriarch, Tywin, the most powerful, calculated, and feared man in the world, killed by his own son on a privy. It is the ultimate statement by Martin on the nature of power. Tywin spent his entire life building a legacy of fear and prestige, and he died in the most undignified, human way possible. It proves Varys' famous riddle: power resides where men believe it resides. Once Tyrion pulled that trigger, the Lannister myth died with Tywin. And then we have the epilogue that still gives me chills decades later. Lady Stoneheart. Catelyn Stark returning as a spirit of pure, unadulterated vengeance. Magic is no longer just a sign in the sky. It is now an active, terrifying force that brings the dead back to settle old scores. The storm has cleared the board of almost every traditional piece, leaving the reader as stranded and uncertain as the survivors. It is the end of an era for Westeros, where the rules of the living are being overwritten by the laws of the dead.
It's a global reset that sets the stage for the slower, more mournful A Feast for Crows. Thank you for sitting with us in the lounge today through this incredible storm of information. We hope this deep dive into the lore, the legalities, and the combat strategies of A Storm of Swords gave you a new perspective on George R.R. Martin's brutal genius. Keep your spears sharp, your minds open, and never trust a man who won't share his bread and salt. See you in the next episode for the aftermath of the storm, where we look at the ruins of a broken kingdom and the crows that feast upon it. Stay safe out there, scholars of the lore. Remember, winter is no longer coming. For many, it is already here in the hearts of men. Goodbye for now, and until next time in the world of ice and fire.